over the next few days and weeks and all the way to the end of September and beyond, the power of the tribunals will be visible and strong with regard to the governorship and assembly elections. No party can escape from their reach. So their decisions will obviously have a disruptive effect for some while being an enabler for others. There are all kinds of legal issues. Candidates not resigning their appointments before the date of elections. Candidates not being qualified to take part. Anomalies with the processes of elections, ballots not tallying, etc. So you could say it's a scourge of Nigeria's political parties and their candidates, a condition that will affect them most profoundly, and one that could see some of them effectively pummeled by the tribunals. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the Arise News analyst and former chairman of the editorial board of Daily Trust newspaper, Mahmood Jega. Good to see you, Mahmood.
Thank you.
It's been a while.
It's a while, yes.
So it's nice to reconnect, as we say. And you've recovered. I know you were a little bit sick some time ago.
Yes,
What do you reckon is the mood inside the political parties as expectation grows that the governorship tribunals will shortly begin to deliver their rulings, as we are starting to see from the National Assembly tribunals as well? I mean, will there be a sense of furrowed brows and considerable disquiet about the potentially disturbing turbulence to come?
It is true. Already there is a lot of anxiety with respect to governorship and legislative elections. I think some even delivered judgment today, I think, in Zamfara or somewhere, and one other. But almost all the gubernatorial elections are being contested by one loser or another. And we will see what happens in the next week or two, because the deadlines are already approaching.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, we have also seen in the case of the legislative elections, already the tribunals have quashed the elections of some senators and some members of the House of Representatives, even though the processes may not be concluded because they are subject to appeal. Well, you know, the general observation is that it is a bit easier to overturn the lower level elections than the higher level elections, because like you are discussing at your side, you see, if it is one local government, however big it is, it may be easier for the litigant to prove irregularities
and submit the evidence,
and it will be enough to overturn the results of the election over, you know. But you know, if the constituency is a bit larger, like a senatorial district, which is usually made up of many local governments, not to mention a gubernatorial election, which is the whole state, not to mention the presidential election.
We wouldn't go there.
Exactly. So it is quite likely that we are going to see many legislative and possibly one or two gubernatorial elections also being overturned by the tribunals in the weeks to come, although there are still appeal processes to follow. Yes, in many cases.
Yeah, that's a good point. And what's your, I mean, listening to Banky W there talking, I mean, giving his own assessment of his experience of that election and so on. I mean, how did it all come across to you?
He's a very forceful speaker. I can imagine that he was a very charismatic election candidate. Now he has the chance, again, not in the whole constituency, but in some polling.
Well, he reckons that those polling units are where he's got a lot of support.
I'm not familiar with that constituency, but I'll not be surprised, because you know what Nigerian politicians do? They aim to start trouble in areas where the opponent
they're weak.
Where they are weak,
and their opponent is strong. Yeah,
so as to point. Because once there is violence, the law says that you cancel the result of that polling unit. However, if you do it in too many polling units, and the total number of voters disenfranchised there is more than the gap between the winner and the second place finisher, then the tribunal might order I think that's what they call supplementary
election.
Which is what happened in Ethiopia. The opponents overdid it. But if you just do it in a few polling units, you might often get away with it.
That's a good point. And let's just turn, in the couple of minutes we've got left, to the David Otto, who was here, who's the international security analyst, talking about that agreement that's been reached between Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, an alliance where they're saying if you attack any of us, you attack all of us. How do you see that? Is that something that would, deter coup plotters or sort of encourage them?
Actually encourage, but on the whole, when I thought about it, it was not very wise of those three countries to form this so-called Sahelian military alliance, because, let's be frank, their main concern is to preserve the military coups that they carried out in those countries. Otherwise, all three of them are facing major existential threats from jihadists and other terrorist groups. And they are not doing very well in terms of coping with that. They had help from France, all three of them, but because of the coups that they had, the relationship with France deteriorated. They chased out the French military presence, and in the case of Mali, even the United Nations peacekeeping force, they asked them to go out. Now, the three of them, the military capacity of all three of them combined is really nothing to write home about, even in dealing with the home insurgency.
Not to talk of attacking
not to talk of
an invading force.
Exactly.
Conventional force.
Yeah, but they have embarrassed ECOWAS, and they have, but there are even some contiguous countries that are ruled by the military, like Guinea and Chad, but they made no effort to join this alliance. They don't have the same attitude, not to talk about Gabon, which is a bit far away. Chad is being ruled by a soldier who is not very, very proud of the situation. His own was really forced. When the father was killed, the son had to really step in to stabilize things. So he doesn't seem to have the same feeling that he must preserve military rule in Chad. And in Guinea, also the same thing. Not to talk about Sudan, which has gone bonkers with its military ruler. So on the whole, it is just a show that the three of them are making. The big problem that they have is how to address the insurgencies and terrorist groups inside their own countries. They probably shouldn't worry too much about intervention. The way things are going, ECOWAS is unlikely to undertake that military intervention in Niger Republic.
And on that very sobering analysis, I want to thank you very much indeed. Mahmoud Jega is an Arise News analyst and former chairman of the editorial board of Daily Trust newspaper. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Sir.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja and Lagos. Bye-bye and thank you for watching.